This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Grow My Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien, your host, and today we have another guest with us. You're going to really enjoy this conversation with Hagen Dittmer from Cliniconnect. Hagen, how are you today?
Mate, I am a little bit cold. I'm down in Melbourne, and you look a little bit warmer than I am up in the Gold Coast, but otherwise, pretty good.
Yes, thankfully people won't see the video recording, but I am on the sunny Gold Coast. I do some volunteering up here at this time of year every year, so it is quite warm and humid, and I'm slightly envious of your cooler Melbourne weather today.
Trade you.
I know, right? I know. So for listeners who aren't familiar, Hagen, can you explain to us a little bit about Cliniconnect and what it is that you guys do? And then as this conversation progresses, we're going to talk about your story and the benefits of practice management softwares for clinics. But what is Cliniconnect?
Yeah, for sure. So it's, I think like all things kind of started out of let's kind of try this and maybe there's a market for it. But I was actually seeing a naturopathist at the time, and they were using Cliniko, and I thought it looked pretty fancy. It's one of the nicer looking PMSs out there, and they were processing my payment. So part of it was on HiCaps, right, as you expect, but I noticed that it didn't have that integration. So my background is in primarily in corporate IT, and then I moved into corporate analytics. So computing and problem solving has always been a big thing of mine. And so they couldn't connect the HiCaps machine, and I thought that was a bit weird, and started having a look and kind of investigating, and then read up a bit more on Cliniko and had a look at what they were doing, and noticed that they're, I guess, for want of a better word, one of the more open systems out there. And so the mind started reeling. I thought, well, there's an opportunity to do something in that space. That kind of came, and it didn't really pan out. There was a whole bunch of technical limitations, but along the way, other ideas crop up as you get more familiar with the system. And so there were some opportunities in the reporting space. There were some opportunities in the automation space. There were some other kind of things that you could just make life easier if added to Cliniko. And then through meeting other practitioners who are using it, or practitioners who wanted to use it, the migrations thing became a really apparent sort of market need. So that's kind of how we got stuck into it. And then those products, or services, I should say, started attracting customers, and there was an opportunity to turn it into an actual real life proper business. And so I sort of made the call to leave what I was doing and go all in on this. And so that was probably 2 years ago now.
Yeah, right. Well done. And would you say that migrations is one of the foundations of what it is that Cliniconnect does?
I think that really grew out of our sort of rapid familiarization with it. So, when you really understand a system well, it makes it a bit easier to, extend to the more complex side of things. And so we were talking about kind of data, or complicated linked data, being able to understand where that's going to go in Cliniko, being able to identify it in the system it's coming from. I think really that grew out of our playing with other products. So it was more of a secondary development service. And then it became the thing that we started getting a lot of inquiries for. Obviously, that's a sort of a service that we provide, not a product. But yeah, we kind of started offering it, and more and more people started coming to us for it. And so that just sort of grew and grew. We want to turn it into a self-service product eventually, but that has its own complexities that we need to work through. But that was definitely a secondary service for us.
Yeah, sure. And the product side of what you do is really exciting, and I love that. You're looking for opportunities to create more integrations and add things onto Cliniko. It's an interesting discussion around practice management softwares, whether they should do these integrations in-house, or companies like Cliniconnect can build the bolt-ons that really enhance that product, whether it's Cliniko or Nucal. Tell us, Hagen, what do you see as some of the opportunities with practice management software. So maybe a glimpse into things that you're working on, or where can clinic owners leverage better their practice management software?
So look, touching on what you were saying before about a system that can have things added onto it, and I'll touch on that first because it's a common gripe, and it's a valid one, that when you invest in using a system, you kind of expect it to do all of the things that you need it to do.
Does do everything we need?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, it's why I'm torn between saying it's a valid assumption, but it's also potentially an invalid assumption, because if you attempt to be a jack of all trades, as the saying goes, you end up being a master of none.
Sure.
And I think where any kind of system is attempting to, or any kind of organization that offers a computer system, where they try and touch on too many features or too many areas of functionality outside of their core, the hazard is that they end up doing them poorly. And so I think talking about Cliniko, case in point, they have very specific, and I wouldn't call it narrow, but they have a very trained set of features, and I guess where the development is going. But what they have done is, through the exposure of their API, they allow third parties, either engaged by their customers, their practitioners, or third parties that exist in their own right, to develop extra functionality. And I think that approach, although it can end up costing more, I think the freedom to pick and choose is quite a powerful one, and is definitely, I think, one of the key features that sets a system like that apart from its competitors. As far as the future goes, how long's a piece of string? There are so many things that so-called technologists or futurists come up with. But I really think just kind of maintaining its core, its core feature set, its core advantages over the others is going to keep it in good stead. Look, certainly there are a lot of other things that you could do, but I think that's going to be heavily driven by customer feedback. And maybe that's one of the benefits of being such an open system, is that it doesn't have to be implemented by a particular practice management system. It can be implemented by a third party and give customers of that system the freedom to have a play around, see if it's a good fit for them, and if it's not, ditch it, and if it is, then sort of add it on, so to speak.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the lesson there for clinic owners, if you're listening and you're going, what does this mean for me? When you're considering a practice management software, find one that does what it does really well, and don't have unrealistic expectations of one software to be the magic bullet, but find something that has the capacity to build out a full stack of what might suit your clinic. So, for example, in my clinic, and we're talking a lot about Cliniko here, listeners, as a disclaimer, we're all agnostic around practice management softwares as what suits your purpose best. But for us, being able to use integrations like Clinic apps and Xero and those types of things with Cliniko, because it's not the perfect product, but it allows things to be built on top of it. Hagen, let's change gears a little bit there around transitioning from one PMS to another. What would you say are some legitimate reasons to consider a transition? And what are some illegitimate reasons? I'm sure you come across people who want to change for unnecessary purposes. Can you talk to us about what might inspire someone to transition from one PMS to another?
There's probably 4 or 5 key criteria. Those are obviously cost is a really big one. Accessibility is another one. A lot of older systems are kind of accessible exclusively in clinic,
sure.
Which that can be good as far as setting boundaries with your staff. You work from this hour to this hour, and I don't want you to work at home. But it's health. There are always reasons to check something outside of hours. So that accessibility is an important one. The other accessibility is kind of a technological one. So accessibility for those who are either vision impaired, hearing impaired, or in some other impaired, some other kind of way when it comes to interfacing with the computer, and systems that make that easier. sort of lower the barriers for interaction with its users. Functionality, big one. Does your system do everything that you need it to? If it doesn't, what else do you need it to do? And I think I'm going to throw these all into one bag, but stability, availability, those are really big things as well. So the traditional deployment is a big server inside your clinic, and then you'll have a bunch of little computers probably on reception and some in your consulting rooms. All those computers connect to the one server. You're responsible for the server. Anything happens to the server, you guys stop working. And of course, you have various fees and costs associated with running your own hardware in clinic. A cloud system, any cloud system comes with a service level agreement, uptime, SLA. And you can hold those companies to those SLAs. And in most cases, if they fail to meet an SLA, you get compensated. So that's a really big one. It's really, for those two particular items, it's really mitigating risk. You don't want to keep that risk in-house. Mm-hmm. You're paying somebody to have that risk on your behalf. And if anything goes wrong, that risk is with them. But you're trusting the fact that it's an established company with great technical staff that know what they're doing. And I think, in a lot of cases in the PMS space, that's what you can expect. So those are key drivers for the move too.
I love it. Interesting. So let's just lean on the costing. We've mentioned that word a couple of times. For mine, when we're talking about add-ons and bolt-ons, if we look back to that part of the discussion, products like Cliniconnect offers or others, people might often see that as a cost, but if it's an investment that saves you a number of hours of time or helps with increasing your clients and revenue in your clinic, it becomes less of a cost and more of an expense. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. And the same can be said for anything that you use in a day-to-day capacity that you don't necessarily have or own, but helps speed things up. The fact that we even have computers now, they're an investment, but by God, they speed things up a lot. Arguably, right?
Well, yeah, it's all relative. But likewise with practice management softwares, I've often heard the discussion or argument now around cloud softwares that I don't own anything. I'm paying all this money per year to not have a server in my office or to not have anything tangible. My response to that, and I'm sure you would agree, is that, like you said, you're paying for experts who can keep this up to date, and the risk therefore goes outside your clinic and onto someone else. Is that fair?
Yeah, a lot of the cost is skill set, sort of moving the skill sets required to run a system off to another company. Risk mitigation is a really, really big one, and security, which a lot of people, I think, have the incorrect assumption that if they're running a computer system inside their clinic, then that is safer than a cloud system that's running they don't know where. But the reality is, when you're a cloud service provider, you have got an enormous issue with ensuring security. And look, it's not made difficult to ensure security in these environments. Like it's very easy to ensure that things are as secure as they possibly can be. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that entrusting your data to an online practice management system is probably more safe than running it on a server in your office, which is a tiny little router sitting at your internet gateway. These are big, important systems, and a lot of investment is made in securing them, much more than would be done securing the server in your clinic. Yeah,
I entirely agree with that. And the reality is that we entrust our banking and our finances to the cloud, essentially, the internet banking, and a lot of the security protocols with practice management softwares are to a similar level. We had a discussion when we transitioned in our clinic from the internal server-based model to a cloud model that someone could far easily just crack the glass window and pick up our server and walk out again. And that is far less secure than investing in something like Cliniko or Nuclear or any of the other options. Hagen, that's been some really interesting insights there around the opportunities for people to improve on their PMS, to transition from one style to another style. And that's a lot of what you guys do. I'm continually inspired and referring clients your direction because of the work that you do, specifically around the transition from one PMS to another. If people want to learn more about you and Cliniconnect, where should they go to learn more?
So that service, Jack, we call migrations, and it's, as far as a service offering goes, it's kind of only come to the fore in the last few months. So on our website, we have a fairly lengthy explanation of what that entails and what you can expect. Important things like what kind of information is included, what kind of information is excluded, and why it's excluded. In a lot of the cases, that's going to be dependent on the system that you're transferring from. Some systems make it easier to get information out of. Some are a bit more of a pain in the bottom. So it's, first and foremost, you go to there. But I'm always happy to reply to emails inquiring. The kind of information that's really useful is like what system you're coming from, how many patients are we talking about, and that sort of stuff is really helpful to firstly put together a quote and give you an idea of how much effort is involved and what the process looks like. It can be different for different people. There are some mitigating factors that go into it, but to date we haven't found a system that we can't move from, and of course, as we grow this service, the number of systems that we do migrate from extends and grows. So we have those, what we call migration templates, down pat. And if need be, we can make tweaks to them for particular custom requests. But generally speaking, it's a bit of prep work up front, and then we kind of click and go.
Great. I love it. And that's at cliniconnect.io. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. And listeners, we'll link that up in the show notes so you'll be able to find those links and head straight there. All of those show notes, including any of the quotes from today and anything else we've mentioned, will be at clinicmastery.com/podcast. Hagen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll love to have you back. I know in the new year there's a whole lot of fancy things coming out from Cliniconnect, so we'd love to have you back as a guest on the podcast. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for the listeners today?
Oh, well, mate, words of wisdom would imply that I'm wise. I think at this point in the year, I would probably suggest that you all get ready to take a very nice and enjoyable break. Get yourselves refreshed, maybe get in a few mince pies or some bubbly on or nearing Christmas Day, and then get ready for a very busy 2019, because I know some other players in the market have got cool stuff coming out. We have some really cool stuff coming out, and so it's going to be a very exciting and integrated 2019.
I love it. You have proven yourself wise, Hagen. Listeners, thank you for joining us again for this episode. Make sure you head over to clinicmastery.com/podcast for all of the notes and opportunity to jump on one of our free online courses to help you grow your clinic. And finally, we really appreciate your reviews, ratings on iTunes, Spotify, and all of the platforms. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to bringing you another episode again really soon.
This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.